You are listening to Speak Free Radio, the free speech internet radio platform.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Shelley Tasker show here, coming from speakfreeradio.com. It's good to have your company. Today's date is Wednesday, the 21st of February, 2024. So, tonight I have a great guest for you, and with no further ado, I shall bring him in. He is John Gilbert. He is a homeopath, a spiritual healer. He's got many bows to his string. Right, let's bring him in. Good evening, John.
Hello, Shelley. Been a while.
It has been a while. How are you, my friend?
Not too bad at all. It's the frequencies are sort of hurting everybody at the moment, so we've got a few frequency problems, but apart from that, I'm doing pretty well.
Good to hear it. Good to hear it. I can't feel the frequencies, but I can feel the heartburn I've got at the moment. But anyway, so you've got some important stuff to talk about tonight, and I've known about this for a few years ago. You started the assemblies. Are you the founder?
It was myself and two others that started, and then we formed the first 12, of which you were one.
Exactly. What an honour. So before we get into it, can you explain to people what the community assemblies are about, what they are, where did they originate from, and the stage is yours.
Yes, thanks very much.
You're the guest.
Originally, the community assemblies was, it started off as, Shelley knows that we started off as a community assembly of Camber. And then it sort of got bigger and spread out and became the community assembly of Kernow. Then became the community assembly of the British Isles. Then has morphed into the assemblies of the world. We're more interested in the community assemblies of the British Isles at the moment, but it stemmed from. It's not a new idea to have a parallel society. It's not a new idea. Parallel communities have been around for a while. The idea behind this one was not to have actually controlled assemblies, but to allow people to control themselves. And the community assemblies was just a link between all the different types of assemblies that they formed. We have a framework which gives people the ability to choose what they want to do or what they don't want to do, what's important to them, because you've got some people concentrating on food, some people concentrating on health. Some are actually quite politically active, although we don't encourage that because it is a parallel society. It's got nothing to do with the current society. The Cornwall one we're working on at the moment, because there is a prediction that Cornwall will actually lead us out of the current situation.
Really? Wow.
and it's always been ahead. I mean, we have over the rest of the British Isles, I think we've got a third of all regions in the British Isles now have their own community assemblies. But local assemblies, which are the important ones, because it's an upside down regime, and members are the highest. Facilitators are the servants of the people. Regional facilities are the servants of the servants, and then you get down to me, and I'm lower than a pig's belly. So I don't really have a lot to say. I just have to carry out whatever people's wishes are, and I do have something to do with the assemblies of the world, although we have emissaries which are chosen, and they represent the different countries that we have at the moment, and they meet up quite regularly, they talk quite regularly, and then the information gets fed back to the assemblies, the Community Assembly of the British Isles, who then feeds it back to the regional assemblies, who then feed it back to their members, and so on. So you've got this two-way information stream, which goes from the members all the way up through to the rest of the world, and then comes back from the rest of the world all the way back down to the members again.
Right, and I'm looking at this, obviously I know a bit, but for the listeners' view, it's the assemblies are about bringing about a change in society and having our own system, so to speak.
Yeah.
Am I right, wrong?
Yeah.
You know, I know we've talked about law courts and things like that, having our own courts.
No, you're absolutely right. It's ignoring the system. It's not trying to change the system. You can't keep changing something that's so embedded. It's turning the system, it's pushing the system away and say, look, sorry, but we don't want to play anymore. We're doing our own thing, and which we have every right to do.
Yeah. And I mean, already within the assemblies, you've got things like the peacekeepers, and they all up and running.
Oh yeah. We're recruiting more now, but we run regular patrols now. Have you seen the uniforms?
The purple uniforms, they're unmissable, John.
That's it. Yes, that's the whole point behind it, is to make people unmissable. We're not there to fight the police. That's a whole different organisation. We're there to give advice. We're there to help people. If they run into trouble from the current system, we're trained up to help people out. But we're not there to fight anything. We're just there to use words as our sword and shield.
And keep the peace.
Definitely keep the peace.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think. I know a few of you that have joined up for the peacekeepers, and for those that, you know, it's just trying to explain it a different way to people. So the peacekeepers are, in a way, those in the assemblies, their own police, their help. Rather than calling on the police, we would call on the peacekeepers.
No, we can work with the police. We have worked with the police. We had to raise a complaint against a certain agency who were trying to collect money for the councils. Actually, they weren't trying to collect money for the councils, they were trying to collect money for themselves. And they were making a bit of a nuisance of themselves, so we went along to the police and said, look, we need to get something straight here. You cannot help these people because they're operating fraudulently. And we explained everything to them. The police turned around and said, well, if you have any problems, all they've got to do is ring the police, and the police will respond if they say that they're under duress by these agents, because they're not part of the courts. There is no courts involved in this. So if they're under a duress from these people, then they can call the police in if we can't respond. So there is a certain amount of cooperation between the two, and it pays to have cooperation.
Absolutely. So, well, I mean, are you talking about these types of people like debt collectors arriving on your door?
Yeah, except they can't count themselves as debt collectors because there is no debt. We have informed them there is no debt. They still send people around. One company has now withdrawn from. They no longer operate in Cornwall because of the complaints and stuff that we've put against them. Another
Wow.
another company has now been fined in their own courts for misbehaving. So they're starting to come under pressure now. We train people up to be able to defend themselves against these people because it doesn't take much to do. Do you want me to explain?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. If somebody comes to your door and says you owe money to the council, basically you say prove it. Now that means that they have to present you with proof, and they say, well, we've got a liability order against you, and you say, show me. They can't show you because they don't actually carry them. They carry some authority from the council, but not from the courts. So the council have given them permission to actually go and collect debts, but there is no liability whatsoever for you to pay. We've challenged here in Cornwall and in Devon, we have challenged the councils on what's known as a rebuttal, which is a rebuttal is a legal system whereby they make a claim and you rebut the claim. Then they can rebut your rebuttal, and then you can rebut their rebuttal. They never go that far. They get the rebuttal and completely ignore it, which actually means that your rebuttal stands as the highest truth. So you have the higher ground. Actually, after that, they're not supposed to do anything. If they haven't, you give them 2 months. If they haven't responded in 2 months, technically they can't do anything. That's why they've got to hold their own courts, which is not a court, by the way, it's a tribunal. So they don't even have that amount of authority. They can't. They're even calling themselves incorrectly. So it's it's allowing people to know that they don't have to go to their courts. There is no obligation to go. You can literally just ignore them. If they send us a debt collector around, or somebody knocks on your door and says, you owe money again. But the odd thing is that for the women, it's actually quite good, because when the debt collector calls, they almost certainly say, Shelley Tasker, and you say back to them, oh, that's funny, you don't look like a Shelley. You can actually have some fun. If you're not frightened of them and you know that you're in the right, you can have some fun with them, but really and truthfully, that's being a little bit cruel.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. I've said before, I've tried to stop paying, and then the thought of these agents coming to my door, you've got to know your stuff before you just get into it. You have to know what to say.
Yeah, it just needs the simple stuff.
Yeah.
Prove it, show me. There's a magic legal word which you say to them whenever they say something that's really stupid. You just say ridiculous. I mean, Harry Potter used it. Why shouldn't you?
Yeah. So explain how the courts would work then if we had our own community. And I mean, I'm basing it on the understanding that we'll use, like, say, Camborne, for example. We will basically buy our food from Camborne or nearby. We kind of live, without having deported stuff in and things like that. All locally sourced stuff.
Yeah, the Community Assemblies is a private members association.
So does that mean people have to pay?
No.
Right.
No. People can donate. We run on donations. That's one way to buy the uniforms for the peacekeepers and to be able to train the peacekeepers. We don't get very much coming in, to be honest with you. It's barely enough to keep the thing going. But at least now I'm not digging it into my own pockets, and we have a core team. This is not a one-man band anymore. We have a core team now, and we also have other organisations which have joined us in cooperation. And that core team is made up from all different people from different organisations, and we meet every couple of weeks and discuss the way forward. That now is about to reach 10 organisations, all cooperating together. So this is nothing to do with any hierarchy. Like I said, I'm lower than a pig's belly. I couldn't get much.
You're not that low, John. Come on,
Well,
pick yourself up.
Not that tall either.
Yeah, but you've done a lot of work to, get to come up with this and stuff. And I know a few years ago at the start, you were just working tirelessly with this. And then I suppose the last couple of years, it's everyone in all their groups seem to have taken a bit of a setback. I think the last couple of years, I think they've just been fighting for so long with COVID and stuff. It's like, we need a break. And now you're back in force.
You can understand it. I needed to go away and find other organisations. Now, there are loads of organisations out there. Not all of them are operating in truth. And we have been lucky enough to find 10 organisations who are, and we brought those organisations together and we cooperate with those organisations, and we have developed everything from personal declarations to trusts, to health, the community health initiative, to farming communities, which there are now. It's a massive thing to try to run, and you can understand one person can't do that. Not anyway. I work at all hours of the day and night. I work 7 days a week, but that is not enough to keep this whole thing going. So there are more people that are coming in and helping me out. It's quite nice because you develop some very deep friendships, and there are some very good, very high frequency people within it now. We do meditations twice a week. I'm not very good at that, but I still give it a go. It does produce higher frequencies. We had one meeting where people in Scotland knew we were having the meeting because they felt the frequencies changed as we were doing it. So we got a hasty phone call saying, "Are you up to something?" Yeah, we were. So this is what people are developing now, and it sort of takes its toll on you because of the way that the frequencies are at the moment. But we have the Earth itself. The Schumann resonance, for start off, is increasing steadily, and that's affecting everyone.
Can you explain about that? What's the Schumann resonance?
Well, the Schumann resonance was discovered. Actually, it was predicted by in the I think it was around about 1905, something like this, by Tesla, and he worked out that the frequency of the Earth was somewhere between 7 and 30 hertz. I think he is actually 6.18 or something like this, and 30 hertz. But it was theoretical at the time, and it wasn't until many, many years later that they actually found the Earth did have a frequency, and it was around about 8 hertz. But if you take from the time of Tesla to when they discovered it was 8 hertz, the frequency of the Earth had been slowly increasing. So Tesla must have been pretty much spot on when he theorized about all this. But since then, we're now up around 30 hertz minimum, and it can reach up to 200 hertz. That's had a profound effect on us.
Now, are you talking about the speed of the Earth, the sound frequency? What frequency?
The frequency of the Earth itself. The Earth has a sound frequency. It has its own frequency. Any sound, light, everything has a frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And the Earth has its own frequencies. And this can be detected, but it's increased, and it's increased a lot in the last couple of years. Now, spiritual frequencies have rocketed. You have spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional bodies, and your spiritual bodies, the frequency of your spiritual bodies has increased enormously in the past 3 years. 3 years ago, when we formed the Community Assembly of Camborne, we had the average frequencies in that group was actually above average. We were talking at that time of about 250 to 300 hertz. Now, the average was under 200 hertz at that time. So, pretty brainy group there that you were part of. But gradually, we found that the frequencies were changing. They were going up. And within a year, the average was about 1500 hertz. After that, it started to get absolutely silly because it got into the thousands of hertz, which we thought that's going to kill people. But of course, we're talking about spiritual frequencies. That's not a physical frequency.
Yeah.
We found eventually that some people's spiritual frequencies went off the scales. We couldn't measure it anymore.
What do you think caused that then?
I think it's evolution. I think this is an evolutionary thing, and hasn't made me any smarter. But I feel different. From 2 years, 3 years ago, I feel completely different. No longer does the antics of. By the way, we call the. You probably won't have heard of this one, but we call the people who are causing a lot of problems at the moment. We call them the Bash Street Kids, which comes from I think that's the Beano from years and years ago. So if you hear us talking about BSK, that's what they are. And,
okay.
Yeah. And because they are a comic opera, really. They're just, they don't worry us at all anymore. What they do is nonsensical. So all the stuff that they're doing about, the ULEZ zones and the 15-minute cities and even down to 5G, there is something in it because they need us to think there's something in it, but there isn't a lot. So we just ignore it completely, and we're concentrating on building the community assemblies. We've got a thing that's called the Aurora Network, which are very high frequency people who act like beacons of light. They attract people. Have you ever been in a room and somebody's walked in and you've immediately noticed them?
Yes.
They have a presence.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. So those types of people have always been with us, but now they're becoming more and more powerful. And I would love to be there, but I'm not. So I have to rely on other people doing that side of the work. They're lovely people, really beautiful people. And they have no worry. Their only thought is for humanity. Very, very spiritual. The rest of us have to do the basic work. So we have to go out with the peacekeepers and the peace constables. We've got two. We've got peacekeepers and peace constables.
Right. What's the difference? I'm
right.
Sorry.
Peacekeepers are out there to give information. They're out there to help people solve problems. If there is a dispute, they will help people come to a resolution. It's only the peace constables that deal with the courts.
Right.
Okay, so a peace constable is a bit like now, many years ago, before all this started up, this was 2019, it was actually going long before COVID was. And in 2019, we agreed with America and and Canada, that Canada and the British Isles would have peace constables, and America they would have sheriffs. So that's what you've got equivalent to of in America is a sheriff, which is our peace constables.
Okay.
Yeah. Now the peace constables also train as something called judicators. That's not adjudicator. It's quoted wrong. It's judicator, and a judicator is not a judge. A judicator is purely there for guidance. Again, this is the peace constable coming in on this one. So you have one constable, you have one judicator. The judicator is making sure that if you've got somebody who's very bad at getting their point of view across, and you've got somebody who's very eloquent, there is a disparity there between the two. So you need a judicator to help the person who is very poor at getting their point of view across to even it up. It's got to be an evening process. The whole court is actually run by the jury. And it's not a jury of 12, it's a jury of 13. You can have up to 22 people as a jury. And it is a court of record, so it is all recorded. So there is each person presents their own case in person. They can have a friend there to help, but they do it in person, and they can't have a solicitor, lawyer, or anything else there because it's not a legal requirement. They're purely and simply presenting their case as it is, no legal requirement. The jury make the decision. The jury at any time can ask questions. So if you go to, if you sit down there in the jury itself, and you've got a little query, somebody speaking, and you think of something, you can ask there and then. You don't have to wait. The jury themselves have total control of the courtroom. When it comes to deliberations, the jury stay where it is with all the evidence. One police constable stays there to make sure there's no tampering of evidence. A judicator and everybody else leaves the room until they've reached a decision, and they're allowed to talk and reach a decision on their own, in which case they recall everyone else. So it's completely controlled by the jury.
Right.
I tell you what, it works beautifully.
Yeah, and I'm presuming that's how it would work in a common law court? Because we don't have a jury, do we? Unless it's we don't have a jury for civil matters, do we?
Yes, you do.
Do we? Oh, okay, right.
You still have a jury. You have a jury in all cases, not only for legal matters or unlawful matters, but you also have. Don't forget, we're a common law. We're natural law. So you're charged with do no harm, cause no loss, commit no fraud, keep the peace, and anything to do with those things can go to trial. So it doesn't have to be civil or lawful or legal. It can be a combination of both. It's a separate case on its own. And these sui juris courts are charged with both sides of it. And we've already held them, but we can't hold them in Cornwall. And there is a problem in Cornwall. I have to find at least 300 people.
300 people. I was waiting for this 300 people section. Yeah.
300. This came about in Alfred the Great's time. And in order to be able to hold or have our own courts, we need 300 people. Now, you could say, right, okay, I've held courts. I've held them in England. But I can't hold them in Cornwall because Cornwall is a separate country. And it's still a separate country. No matter what anybody tells you, it's still a separate country. So we have to have our own 300 people. So at the moment, we don't have 300. We've got to find them yet. But once we get, it goes 300 people standing shoulder to shoulder. So they have to all work in agreement. You can't just go out and find 300 people.
Right. So explain what type of people are needed then.
Simply any type of person who is in agreement. We're using the community assemblies at the moment because when you join a community assembly, you take an oath to natural law. And these courts run on natural law. So anybody who's taken that oath in natural law, who's in the community assemblies, is eligible to be counted as those 300. But we are our own worst enemy, because a community assembly, we only require 3 people out of a community assembly to join the CABI, the system that we've got. All the rest of the people don't need to register. So we've only taken oaths from 3 people out of the New Forest, for instance, got over 300 people in it. According to us, we've only got 3. So we are having problems raising these 300 people. So although we've got 13 assemblies in Cornwall, we haven't got enough in those 13 assemblies to claim that we've got people standing shoulder to shoulder. So it's
So
going to be.
So we need 300 people per assembly.
No, we need 300 people in each country. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
See, that doesn't sound hard to me. I'm the forever optimist anyway. But sorry, I'm telling you, it should be easy. But no, out of our country then, Cornwall. So I mean, if we think of all the people that are into sovereign law and stuff like that, then surely they just have to stand forward and enter their oath.
Yeah, they don't need to do an awful lot. They keep their own assemblies. Whatever they're doing at the moment, they keep doing it. All they need to do is take 3 of their people and turn them into what we call facilitators, which means that they're people, communicators, if you like. They're people that would transmit information from the membership to us up through to the rest of the world, and we transmit the information back down again. That's all we need. Any other person within that group can join the community assemblies if they want to actually take part in being peacekeepers, or if they want to take part in the courts or anything like this, they can join as a separate person. So it's not as easy as getting 300 people together, because out of that 300 people, you might only get 20.
Right.
It's not as easy as we think it is. In England, it was fabulous because, we hit the 1,000 quite quickly. But you've got an awful lot more people in England than you have in Cornwall. So it was, so they can hold the courts up there. We can't hold them down here. We also need to bring back the stannaries, because again, the Cornish folk or the Cornish people do not have to obey any laws or acts made by Westminster.
Oh, okay. So can you clarify what is a stanary?
Oh, stannaries. Okay, they used to call them the stanary parliaments, but stannaries are the tinners. But that membership, if you like, has been extended to all Cornish folks. Anything to do with tin mining, which means all the people all the farmers who are supplying food to the tinners, all the engineers, all the doctors, nursing, everybody has a part to play in that. So in effect, really, it means the whole of the people living in Cornwall is part of this, and they are separate, a separate country. They are separate people. They are not. They do not have to obey Acts of Parliament. Actually, neither do the English, but the English haven't really cottoned on to that yet. You only have to obey an Act of Parliament if you agree to obey an Act of Parliament.
Okay, it's quite heavy stuff, isn't it?
We have to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, so I'm just like transfixed on this 300 people thing.
Well, actually, there is another one which is 600. And if we had 600, we nearly reached it at one time. We had over 550 people in Cornwall. And if we had reached 600, that would have sealed us as a separate country.
Right. So to get people to join, what do they need to do? In what way do they need to be committed?
Um, they only need to be committed to natural law, which is, the do no harm and keep the peace type thing. You can add in there a bit about fraud, commit no fraud, things like this. But in truth, really, it's all just keep the peace, which you are charged to do. You must do it. If you see a wrong being done, you have to do something about it. And you also can do no harm. Now, this causes a few problems anyway. But if you're doing that, you can go onto the Community Assembly website, which is www.ca Charlie Alpha, and then hyphen the minus sign BritishIsles.com. And when you go on to that, then there is a button there that says "Join us now." They can simply fill out the form then and agree to the oath, which is the natural law, and that's it. There's very, very little information that we need. We just need a contact email address. People can give their phone numbers if they want to. They don't have to, but they can give their phone numbers if they want to, and they give their town, so that we can put them into the community. If there's a community assembly there already, we can introduce them to those people. And that's basically it. But from that point onwards, then they need to be committed enough that if we need to call a court and ask them to do so, they are willing to at least attend, even if they're not a member of the court itself. They don't have to be, because they can excuse themselves from that. But we need to get at least 13 people. So 40 turn up. As long as 13 say, yes, I'll become a member of the jury, that's all we need. So people just to be committed enough to do that, and committed enough to be able to transfer information, because we need to know what's going on. Apart from that, we don't need to know what the local assemblies are doing, other than if they come across something new, or if they find something new, they feed the information to us, we feed it out to everybody else. So in truth, really, we can have it all the way around the world within a week.
Right. So anybody listening, basically, wherever you are really in the world, because I mean, this does go out to America and everything as well, you need to go onto this website and join. It's not a hard thing to do, is it? Go in, join, put your details in, and if then like John gets in contact with you and says this is your nearest assembly or what have you, that gets the ball rolling for numbers, yeah?
That's basically it. It's as long as you can spell, or if you're dyslexic, of course you can smell. And my humor hasn't changed, Shelley. Sorry.
That's all right.
As long as you can basically spell your name and the name of your town, that's all we need really to set the ball rolling. And then we try to put you in touch with other people in that area. Sometimes people have to wait because they might be stuck out in the sticks somewhere else, and all they're going to do is get the information for now. And it might take a while before we can get them in touch with other groups. But as the whole thing grows, so the Aurora network will slowly take over.
Right. Now, like I said to you, I'm positive and everything like that. And I just think if we can, I'm a big one for campaigning, John. Let's get the people together. And I mean, I think realistically, like all the groups that we're on Facebook and stuff like that, trying to get people just to direct to a website and say that they want to be part of a bigger picture and a better world.
Yeah.
It's not a lot to ask, is it? You're not asking them to go out and do things, if they have to go to court or something like that. But that's the whole point. We'll have our own courts and hopefully a different justice system.
It will be our courts, and the thing with that is that if it's a protection as well, because if you've got agents coming around knocking on the doors, we can actually haul them up in court.
Right.
It's not going to take them very long to realise they really shouldn't be knocking on people's doors down here.
Yeah.
So eventually they're going to sort of give up on it. Like I said, one company has already given up down here, but we have. They've had a few experiences from people saying, "No, ridiculous, go away. We don't want you here."
Right.
And it does rather upset them. I can understand that. You know, people get annoyed that they've come around and they're knocking on a door asking for money. We're not a charity. We're not going to give them money. They have no right to ask for it. So I can understand that they get annoyed by it, but at the same time, they chose that job. We didn't choose it for them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to pop your website into the speech part, into the chat part, and I'll put it when I upload it to other platforms.
Yeah.
Where am I? Let's put it, because I've got so much information on there. Right, I'm posting it as a comment. Okay, but the part that you sent me has got all the links to the sign up, what the community assembly is, the peace service, the blog, the community light brigade. What's the community light brigade?
The Community Light Brigade was what we used to call the Aurora Network. It was just that spiritually we were told that the Light Brigade was it was close enough, but it was the wrong wording. So we changed that to the Aurora Network. And the Aurora Network is when you've got high frequency people in, let's say, one group here, and you've got a high frequency people in another group. Everybody has the same frequencies, by the way, but some of us have actually learned to free the frequencies up from different people, so we can go through a set of exercises which can free up your frequencies. It does make a difference. So everybody can become high enough. It's just whether they want to become high enough. And optimists. We need a lot more optimists and a lot less pessimists that are actually digging deep and saying, "Oh, we've got to fight this thing that the councils are doing right now. Oh, we've got to stop them doing that." No, just walk away and leave it and go and do something else. Because those are the real leaders that we want. They're the people that don't want to be leaders.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that fight is just too big. I don't think you're ever going to change that system. Like you said earlier, we just build our own on the side. I mean, it's all going on at the moment for the upcoming elections, and I read bits about it on Twitter, and I think it doesn't matter. They're all part. If they get their seats, they're still going to be controlled by those above them. And it's the first time ever I've really seen it. You know, I mean, I was going to stand for a local election, but then is that different? I don't know. It confuses me. Maybe a town councillor, because maybe you could do some good. But
I don't know, because you could take those skills as a town councillor and change the face of the community assemblies locally. So they're getting people more active. The main thing about the voting, for instance, is that when you register to vote, you also register to accept all the parliamentary processes, which means that you've just acquiesced to following their acts of parliament.
Yeah,
so
I understand.
If you don't register to vote, you don't have to follow their acts of parliament.
No.
There's one for you.
Well, I know it's like the whole problem with the whole census form a couple of years ago, and people were so up in arms about it. And it's funny what we find easy compared to some people really worrying about someone knocking on the door telling them they've got to fill in a form. Yeah. And perhaps you should look at that a bit in a similar way about an agent knocking on your door.
Yes, exactly the same. Tell them to go away.
I think the problem is with that is that people are then worried. What I hear is like, oh, I owe money for council tax and stuff like this, and then they're going to take my car, they're going to go in my house, and they're going to take this. But unofficially, they're not allowed to step into your premises, are they?
No, they're not allowed to do anything like that at all. They have no rights whatsoever. And so one agent called at my door, told me he was working for the courts, which he wasn't. So I challenged him on that, and eventually he said, "No, I'm working for the council." Uh, and I said, "So that's not a court then?" And he said, "Well, anyway, if you don't give me the money that I need, I can call the police and have you arrested for stopping it because you are stopping me in my duties." And I said, "Just a minute." So I phoned the police. This was after I'd seen the police in the first place. And I said, I've got a gentleman here who has, and as I looked around, he was gone.
Yeah, he thought you were silly. Yeah.
He thought I was being ridiculous as well. He's obviously watched Harry Potter as well.
It's knowing your stuff, isn't it? Um, I spoke to Sovereign Pete from the Sovereign Project last week as well. And wow, just all these things. But these are the sort of things we should be learning about in schools, our rights and things like that. And I'm presuming, like, if the way forward was that we, be positive. Why couldn't we build our own system, and we'd have our own education system and teach people about who they really are and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
There's lots of possibilities, and people say, "Oh, you're a big dreamer," but no, I don't know. It's a depressing world, isn't it? When you look on Twitter and things like that and see what's going on. At the end of the day, we're here in the now. We're not in that country where that's happening, and there's no point in getting bogged down with all the, the sadness, the grief, the things you see.
I did very much the similar thing to what you wanted to do, which was to change the world. And I entered into the civil service, and it was Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. And it was at that time, I was 14 years in there. I didn't manage to change anything. And you suddenly realize that the people that are actually running the country have never been elected. And the fall guys are actually the ones that we think we're electing to do things. They're the fall guys. They're the ones that get changed when people get a bit disgruntled. So it's, you can't actually change anything. What was it that Hamish Miller said? He said you can't go tilting at windmills all of the time because they're so ingrained in society that you can't get them out. So you might as well be tilting at windmills as trying to change anything there.
Yeah.
He formed a parallel society. I think it was 2000. I think it was around about 2000, and because he died in 2000. I think it was 2010 that he died. But it was starting to gain ground at that time, and people were starting to change. But it fell apart, unfortunately. But it was maybe just a little bit too early.
And there are these cultures and stuff around the world that have got their own sort of societies, haven't they? I remember reading about a country in America who none of them had ever had any vaccines. It was all organic, and it just looked like, wow, what a life. But it's going back to nature, isn't it? Getting out of this material world, and yeah.
The things that we need. I mean, in Cornwall now, the Community Assemblies in Cornwall, or the Community Assembly of Kernow, we have a National Health Service now. We've got everything that you actually need in Cornwall now, including dentists, including pharmacists, every type of naturopath and homeopath and everything you can actually think of, including a couple of doctors who at the moment haven't really come out, but they're there to get, they can sign prescriptions if we need them.
Wow, yeah, because I can remember actually when people were having problems with work when they'd be forced to have that nasty injection, somebody telling me that you helped and you wrote a letter to say,
Yeah,
well, yeah, that they're not allowed it or what have you.
that's
But
right. Yeah.
but I'm presuming though these people they would pay you privately. They can't expect you to do it for nothing.
No, I do it for nothing.
God, I shouldn't have said that on the radio. What drugs do you all need out there?
We all help each other. Um, we all scratch each other's backs, as somebody said to me the other day, and um, it's it makes you feel good, but you are getting paid because whatever you do, somebody else will help you.
Yeah, it's almost like the pay it forward format, isn't it? What you give, you shall receive, and but
Yeah.
receive 10 times back.
Well, I
Um,
don't get 10 times back yet, but I mean,
one day. But you know what I
maybe.
mean? Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, if you help out, you've got to remember that the community assemblies are a private members association. So whatever you do for another member, you can actually charge them, but it's sort of a payment in kind type thing where if I charged you £20 for writing a letter, if you're a member of the community assemblies, you can give me that £20. I don't have to declare it, and the next thing you do is you're doing something for me, and you charge me £20 within a membership. You don't have to declare it. It's
yeah,
private.
yeah, yeah. Okay,
Uh,
this is what we've been learning about as well because yeah, I've had these whole ideas about council tax campaigns and stuff, and private members seems to be the way forward for
yeah,
getting through little ways as
yeah,
such.
we've
Yeah,
got little love letters that we can send to the council. So if somebody says I want to stop paying council tax, I say, well, here's a little letter that you can send them. As soon as they send you a bill, you send them this letter. If they then declare that they can do this, they can put an obligation on you. No man can put an obligation onto any other. It has to be an agreement of two minds, a meeting of two minds. So, but they don't do that. They claim that there is a Local Government Finance Act of 1992, and that's our authority. No, it's not. So you then send a rebuttal in to the council, which they completely ignore. That rebuttal means that they can't claim anything else. That's it. They're done for at that point. And we've done
yeah.
that already in Cornwall. Nobody really needs to do any more, but you can keep the rebuttals going if you want to. Now, what we do is we put them on individual people and say it's your responsibility to do this now. It's
Well,
another way of actually looking at it.
yeah, it is just mind blowing how they've just fooled us into this system, isn't it? And just made up little laws and stuff. And
Yeah,
yeah, you owe us this. And the council tax does seem to be the one bill that people they really, there's a lot of money, isn't it? People go into food banks because they're paying their council tax, and they don't realise that what they're paying for is, it's already been paid for. We're just paying twice.
yes,
Um, and funnily enough, I've put in a freedom of information request, and the 28 days is up, but it does say, however, could take a further 20 days because I've inquired about the certain companies, and they're all weaponry companies. If the councillors' pensions are funding any of these companies. Anyway, I've not heard back yet. I could do a freedom of information request every day.
that's a good one. I never thought of that one. I do know that we have got some freedom of information requests back from some of the councils who have admitted that your money does not go to the council. It goes to a central fund, and from a central fund, some of it is paid back to the council.
Yeah.
But if we only paid for the stuff that was actually running the services, you and I would pay around between 130 £150 a year. That's it.
Yeah.
And to fund those services, I would be quite happy to pay that amount of money.
I don't mind contributing a certain amount. I really don't. But it's the fact that the other people, and there's always going to be the other people that take the mickey in various systems. And, we've got the whole refugee problem and stuff like that, where our money is blatantly being used to
Yeah,
house these people and things like that.
yeah,
Um, you know, People always use the argument, well, how do you expect to pay for schools and stuff like that? The government pays for that. It's already paid for.
It's already done.
Yeah.
How are you going to have your dustbins emptied? Well, hold on a minute, because the companies themselves are private.
Yeah.
They pay the local councils for the right to empty your dustbins because they make money out of it. So the dustbins will still keep going, whatever actually happens. There's one point there, a good point that just come out, that most of the councils will go bust.
Yeah.
Because they've got such large pension schemes that they can't afford to pay them anymore. So that they're going to use the excuse that people are not paying their council tax to make them go bust, so that they don't have to pay these huge pension schemes. Yeah, they're going to use all sorts, and that should be spread everywhere so that people are prepared for that.
And I think this is the thing we need to get out doing. We need to do leaflet dropping and stuff. We need to make people aware, because there is going to become a point when people say, actually, do you know what? I just can't pay it. I cannot pay this bill anymore. Yeah. And then they'll be like, what can I do about it? I've had enough. And quite often then it's not too late. It's just a shame that others are going to take longer than us. Anyway, we are coming to an end, my friend. Thank you so much, John. It's been a privilege. So guys, go to www.ca-britishisles.com/Community Assemblies. Sign up, be the change. Take care, my friend, and I'll speak to you again. And I will be up with Maleficus in about 2 minutes, guys, for the Kerno Connection. Stay tuned.